Hello, my beautiful anomalies, and welcome back. I'm Astraea, your lovely host. The incident today is a itchy one. I'll dub this incident, Honey, a parasite stole my body. Allow the evidence to speak for itself. Let's get into it. Veronica Michaels is a 20-year-old female. She is a green-eyed beauty with long flowing chestnut hair. Her mother is a vet tech at the local veterinarian, and her father is a teacher at the University of Florida, where he teaches aerospace engineering. They had met when they were both in college, meeting at the University of Florida, where Robert, Veronica's father, was trying to become a teacher, and her mother, Beth, was studying animal medicine and trying to become a full-fledged veterinarian. Her mother and father had 6 children, with Veronica being the youngest child. Veronica always got along with her siblings. Being the only girl out of the 6 kids, she grew up as sort of a tomboy. And with her mother being a vet tech, Veronica was constantly around different animals. She would go to work with her mom and hang out with the dogs, cats, rabbits, all sorts of animals. And her mom worked on both exotic and large animal breeds. It was because of this that her love for horses started when she was a young age, and grows even to this day. Throughout her childhood, she learned to ride horses and even entered in competitions with her parents' horses. She won a lot of blue ribbons for their valiant steeds. Her parents bought her first horse when she was only 10. She named it Rocky after her favorite cartoon, Rocky and Bullwinkle. He's a big, bulky Clydesdale, and even with his large size, he's just a gentle giant. He honestly couldn't hurt a fly. And they lived on a small ranch within walking distance of the beach, going to the beach every day after school, learning how to surf together. Growing up in Punta Gorda, none of them hesitated to soak in as much sun as possible and ride those gnarly waves. I've always wanted to learn how to surf, but being in the Midwest, you don't exactly get that opportunity. And with her siblings all married and moved away, Veronica was the only one that stayed in Punta Gorda aside from her parents. And oh boy, was Veronica smart. She had a 4.0 GPA, graduated from high school a year early, and now she attends the University of Florida after taking a few-year break from schooling to help out with charities and even as far as going abroad to help build houses in the Middle East. Which, of course, helped her with different scholarships, but with Veronica being who she is as a person, wasn't worried about that. She did it just because she loved to spread happiness and joy to everyone she met. And Gary has compiled a few testimonies from Veronica's closest friends, stating that she was an absolute ray of sunshine. Anytime she would step into the room, it just seemed to get a little brighter with her in it. Just like it would make my day brighter to have you like, share, subscribe, and hit that noti bell. And with her personality and her drive to help others, she decided that she wanted to study law and become a lawyer. My mom always told me that I should become a lawyer when I was growing up because I like to argue, but I digress. With her studies and charity work, she really didn't have the time or energy to spend on relationships. That was until she met Philip. Philip was also a law student studying in the University of Florida, and has been said that it was love at first sight. Do you guys believe in love at first sight? Let me know down in the comments. I personally believe in it, but because when you know, you know. She moved into a little bungalow with Philip a few years after they started dating. They picked out a house that had plenty of land so she could take Rocky with her. And Philip didn't grow up around a lot of animals, but he instantly fell in love with Rocky. And Veronica taught Philip how to ride, and after many attempts, he finally got the hang of it without falling off. They're even talking about getting him his own horse so they can go on rides together. Now, to get to the reason you're all here. It was a cool, breezy night, July 17th, 2022, around 9 p.m. Veronica was settled into bed, pulled out her current law book she was supposed to read and write an expose on that was due next week. Philip was sitting next to her, playing his handheld game device. He was much more into video games than she was, but she did tend to dabble in the occasional game. And when she had gotten her reading done and her brain thoroughly melted from the information she had read, It was time to pull out her own game device and join in on the fun. They were playing some sort of loot 'em and shoot 'em game, and Veronica was surprisingly winning. And as she was just about to shoot the last of the enemies, she felt a sharp pinch. She looked at Philip like he was the one who bit her. And she was winning after all, so he was just being a sore loser. He denied the fact that he had pinched her, and she lifted the covers to reveal where the pinch was located. She had a large welt already forming on her calf. Oh, great, she thought. Bedbugs. Seriously? She then showed Philip the welt on her calf, already the size of a quarter. He really didn't think anything of it. Florida has all sorts of bugs, and it didn't help that they had a window open to let the breeze in. So they just went to sleep, but in the back of Veronica's mind, there was just something not right about whatever had bit her and the welt it left. And she had a very hard time falling asleep. Laying awake at 3 a.m. at this point in time, she decides to go make herself some chamomile tea. Philip is just sound asleep next to her, snoring quite loudly. Jealous of his capabilities to just fall asleep anywhere and how quickly, she gets up to go to the kitchen, and she brews herself the cup of tea and adds a little bit of honey to it. She takes a sip and spits it right out. It's just way too bitter for her taste. So she grabs a container of sugar instead and starts to pour in copious amounts of sugar, almost like something else is taking over her hand and won't let her stop pouring the sugar until most of the container is inside her mug. And she quickly drank the tea in large gulps, sugar that hadn't been dissolved poured into her mouth. She had quite the sweet tooth at that moment, so she decided to raid the candy stash she knew Philip had. She chose 3 king-size candy bars and then sat down at the counter where they had bar stools and absolutely inhaled every single one of those candy bars in quick succession. Satisfied, for the time at least, she begins to yawn and decides now is the time to sleep. Quite reminds me of one of my friends who has a habit of eating sweets and is able to pass out again. Waking up that morning, Veronica really didn't notice the bite anymore, so she just went about her day as usual. Make some coffee for her and Philip, go to the gym, go to class, come home. And Philip was still out by the time she had made it back home, and it was late enough that she decided to start cooking dinner. And Philip shortly arrives back home and greets Veronica. She is standing behind the kitchen island and steps around to give Philip a warm welcome with a hug and a kiss, just like she normally does. When Philip screams. Giving her a start, she tries to get him to explain why he suddenly screamed. All that he can do is just point and stare at her leg. And she looks down and screams herself. Her whole lower leg looks like some sort of praying mantis looking appendage. Like, how would you not notice your leg is suddenly not your leg? I guess if a parasite would take over your brain, you wouldn't notice. Which is exactly, ladies and gentlemen, this is. This is the effect of SCP-150. Veronica was then taken to Site-42 once the Foundation saw posts on social media about her mysterious condition. Various search histories pinged in their radar when Philip had tried to find a cure or something to help Veronica turn back to normal, but to no avail. Philip received amnestics and was convinced that Veronica had a mental breakdown and was taken to a psychiatric facility so she could get the help she needed. This SCP has been nicknamed the Ship of Theseus. It is a philosophical thought experiment that questions identity over time and change, asking if an object remains the same if its original parts are replaced, and if so, which ship is the true one. A ship famously associated with the hero Theseus is preserved in Athens, and as its planks decay, they are replaced with new ones. SCP-150 is a parasite that resembles the one where it eats the fish's tongue and then replaces its tongue with a parasite instead? Yeah, that one. But instead of a fish, this particular SCP only affects humans. And it didn't take too long for the Foundation to hear word of the outbreak once again. It has happened numerous times over the course of years. Trying to contain this bugger and keep it from everyone else has been proven difficult as more and more cases pop up all around the world. Hence is calcification, Keter. However, patients that were affected by SCP-150 should be contained in Level 3 biohazard containment cells, with no more than 1 instance per cell. Cultures of SCP-150 are contained in vacuum-sealed classed at Site 42's Infectious Materials Lab. Standard pathogen handling procedures should be followed at all times. Any instances of this SCP found outside of containment, however, are to be incinerated. And the most glaring alteration, though, is the gradual conversion of the limb nearest to the infection site into a chitinous appendage, which happened to poor Veronica, unfortunately. It excretes tissue that replaces and augments the functionality of the host limb without causing transplant rejection. It has also been said that SCP-150 is able to secrete anesthetic and an immunosuppressant to prevent the body from responding to the change, which explains why Veronica didn't notice her whole leg at first. She just felt like it was any other day with a normal leg. And for a period of about 1 or 2 weeks, SCP-150 will reproduce, feeding on nutrients from and depositing eggs into assimilated blood vessels. These eggs are deposited throughout the human body through the bloodstream. But while the majority of them die off, the ones that survive begin colonizing and altering the rest of the body. Although subjects report discomfort and occasional motor control loss during the process, a lot of the times they will not recognize the cause of the discomfort. SCP-150 reproduces during this assimilation process. Moving its way to the lungs, more and more eggs are produced and spread by the patient's coughing. As many as 10,000 eggs may be produced during this time. About 1% of them find their way to another host, of which 1% survive the host immune system response and implant successfully. It is still unclear why the offspring don't consume each other for space or resources, nor how the assimilation process leaves the body cells' signaling mechanisms and processes unaffected. That would be absolutely terrifying to have one of your limbs change without noticing. Like, you wake up one morning and your whole leg is a bug leg. Not feeling that throughout the whole process, but I suppose I wouldn't care in that matter, considering it takes over the central nervous system and everything. Although SCP-150 inevitably results in the assimilation and alteration of the central nervous system, including the spinal cord and brain, the host's consciousness and behavior seem to be unaffected. Interviews with infected subjects have little information as they are unaware of the SCP and claim to sense no change or improvement in certain senses and faculties. They are fully aware of the infection and are able to pinpoint the source of the change, and have little to no negative feelings and more often express positivity towards it. We have at least one of the patients in containment for testing. There have been plenty of craniotomies and leucotomies for me to look over the results, but one that really took a weird turn is one of the D-Class's personnel's brain parts. It was when 3 of our doctors were performing these surgeries and trying to communicate with the SCP when it happened. And after the craniotomy, the person that was infected with the SCP was then interviewed, asking simple questions to determine brain function. That's if the person could speak at all. And asking these questions, the D-Class had asked to rest, and with given permission, they did so. But before the person's eyes shut, the brain that had been exposed gurgled and retracted back into the D-Class's skull. Ugh, talk about gross. One of the doctors had to leave the room to go hurl. I definitely would have been right there with him. This incident was definitely something. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. And I hope you found this incident screen crawling, and I hope you learned something. Let us know in the comments about your thoughts and feelings and what SCP you'd like to see in a case file for the next incident. Be safe, courteous, and polite out there. Until next time, remember, stay anomalous.